Welcome back to Paigeforge. So today is going to be a little bit different. This video is going to be a little different. We're not going to be going over anything in Paigeforge specifically. Instead, we're going to be going over how to modify Paigeforge to fit your specific use case. So if there is something in Paigeforge that you're like, you know what, I wish this worked like XYZ. Maybe it's similar to Scrivener for you or something else where you're like, I wish it had this. So I'm going to show you how you can go in and add that to Paigeforge and then bundle that extension, update it in the extensions, and boom, you have the change of your little dreams. So that's what we're going to be doing. So I started this with, I'm actually updating the fonts that come bundled. So the fonts that come bundled for the theme manager are either Lunaseco fonts that I personally created, therefore own the license to, so they can be used in software and bundled and all that, or they are Google fonts. So I thought this would be a great time to show you Google fonts, show you how you can download those fonts and then add them to a specific folder in Paigeforge that you're going to be getting bundled with the extension. So you'll have an extension install. That is how Paigeforge is right now. And then there will be this folder, which will allow you to modify things and make updates. So first off, let's go over here. This is Google Fonts. So it's fonts.google.com. And these are open to use for pretty much anything and everything. You can use them on your website. You can use them in ebooks. You can use them on t-shirts. I mean, like you can basically use these for any commercial use. So that is really helpful when you are wanting to work in an application. So just to make sure, you know, I mean, like, honestly, you could use like any font you have on your system because if you're just like giving it to yourself, but for me, I'm bundling these and giving them to you guys. So I'm going to be using Google Fonts. So I have these selected in my little cart, which is a little deceiving. These are completely free. You do not have to pay for them, but you can see here how to use. So you can actually see some of the material design, etc. And I think there is a, there's like terms of use, but basically these are commercial use fonts. So you can just do a search for a particular style, or they have these feelings. So like this is cutesy, artistic, and loud, vintage. So just to show, let's say Gem Nightshade. We want to be adding, which is like a really cool one if you were working on like, I don't know, like Knight of the Round Table or something. So you just hit get font and it takes you to basically this little cart. So you can stack a whole bunch of them. And when you're ready, you are just going to say download all 6. And then it is going to, let me pull this up. And so it's just going to give you a little zip folder. And then when you open up said zip folder, then you've got all of the different fonts and you're just going to open up a font. And you're going to grab the regular. You really don't need to worry about light, italic, whatever. So you're just going to grab the regular and you can copy or you can just drag. And then in Paigeforge, show you where you're going to go. You're going to go into extension. Of course, it's not. Oh, really? Extension, media. And it's going to do it again. Come on. I really just want to open it. Oh my God, why is this being... I swear sometimes just like using the screen recorder causes problems. Why are you still doing that? Thank you. And then fonts. So media, assets, fonts, and then you're going to drag them into here. So I already did that for all of these. You'll see TTF or OTF. So that is all you're going to do so that you can add those into your application for the theme manager. So we're going to bounce back over here and I'm just going to tell Claude Poo and I'm going to say, I'm going to call this this folder, which you really don't need to do. Okay, great. Thank you. I would like to add some more fonts into the theme manager. Please check and I am just going to say add fonts. And of course, it's not going to actually want to give it to me. Claude is super finicky with being able to actually reference things. So I'm just going to say fonts folder. It'll find it. It's fine. I don't know why Claude is the worst about that. Like Codex, all the other ones, I usually don't have problems with. I don't know why. Like if I've made any change in that folder, like a new file, anything, it's just like, no, thank you. Please check the fonts folder. So I am also going to say is that all the fonts I added should be used for the, or should be options for the headings as well as body font. Thank you. And I'm just going to go ahead and go. And this is Sonnet. This is a pretty easy task. And it is one of those things with the models that you are going to want to think through what model you actually need for a lot of things. So I already found them. The ones added today. Lovely. Because I would say like a lot of feature adds Sonnet can handle easily. If it's something a little bit more intricate, so like adding fonts, changing something in the theme manager, like maybe you want like a third color to be added into the theme manager or something like small like that. Even like what we're going to be doing today with, we're going to go over some changes to how the highlights work, could probably be done with Sonnet. But if you get into anything a little bit deeper, then I would just switch to Opus. And honestly, like if you're just like, you know what, I'm just going to use Opus, period, that's completely fine too. A lot of times that's what my default is on Claude, is just set to Opus. So it's just up to you if you want to try and like save a little bit of your token use by using Sonnet. I will say Haiku, like I wouldn't use for pretty much any coding. I would use Haiku to do like formatting changes and things like that in your books. I wouldn't really do that so much for like major like changes to Paigeforge. For one reason is that auto mode is not an option for Haiku because they're like, don't trust Haiku. That is what I read from that, is like, you can't do auto mode for changes and edits with Haiku because we don't trust that Haiku knows what it's doing and it could do something bad. So I would say Sonnet and above for pretty much any of the changes. Okay, so it now says that all of that is done and it changed the dev. So that's good. So now, so this is the thing, is to run the dev instead of having it bundle this immediately, I just want to see if it made the change it made. It said it made. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a new window so that this one stays open. And then I'm going to open recent and I'm going to open the extension. So not just Paigeforge, but this extension folder here, because with this open, and I'm just going to make this full screen, then I can go, I'm going to close this bottom guy. Now I can hit F5 and it will spin up the dev version, the development, which is what dev stands for, the development version of Paigeforge, so that I can just test and see if it made the changes I wanted it to make before bundling it into that VSIX. So I just double clicked on Paigeforge and it loaded, and we're going to go to themes and we are going to go to fonts and we are going to see if it updated, and it did. So we have now Comic New, Comic Relief, Open Dyslexic, which was the main reason I did this, is because I wanted Open Dyslexic in here. This is a great font. By the way, there is a paid font that's very similar to this that I cannot actually think about what it's called. Is it like dyslexia or something? I can't think of it. But Open Dyslexic is absolutely phenomenal, and it changes the weights and the angles on certain letters to make it easier for people with dyslexia to be able to read. So this could be good for not only your display, but obviously for actually reading your prose if you have dyslexia. If you don't, this could be really distracting and annoying. I actually have what I would say is like low-level dyslexia, and this font is a little bit much for me. But what I did get used to is Comic Sans is also one that a lot of people with dyslexia find easier to read. And like a lot of writers have said that they write more if they have Comic Relief as like the body text in like Scrivener. I heard this like forever and ever ago, and it is something that stuck with me. And so Comic Relief and Comic New are both like Comic Sans-esque options. So this one's a little bit lighter. That would be hard for me to read. I like Comic Relief a little bit better. So I do set this. And then for display font, you could really have anything. Like I really like having them based on what I'm actually working on at the moment. So that's just me. And so I'm just going to go here. So I just changed those and I'm going to save and I'm going to apply. Lovely. And now if I go here, you can see that the heading fonts and the body fonts have now changed, and it's just a little bit easier for me personally to read, but we do have plenty of options. So those are going to be shipping with the sans serif as well as the serif options for both the display fonts and for reading fonts now, which is very, very helpful for, I'm sure, a lot of people. But we do still have the really nice, pretty serifs too. It just depends on what your preference is and like potentially what project you're working on too, right? I know I changed like my themes depending on like what genre I'm working on. So if you do that, this is also going to be good for you. But I wanted to make sure that we had some alternatives there for people that need a little bit more contrast or what have you. So that is perfect. So the changes worked and they are looking good. So now I'm going to close this because this is our development one, right? And you'll see here in the terminal, it says that if you press any key, that it will close it. So I want to do that as well before making more changes. Some changes will what is called hot load, which means that the dev version will just update, but a lot of them don't. So if I'm making a lot of changes, I definitely close down that quote unquote development interface for in between when I'm making the changes. So that was Claude Code doing those changes for us. And then this is the extension one. I'm going to pull that over to the side so that we can use it as a dev. So that is the Claude Code making changes here. And you will see here that in the main Paigeforge, not the extension folder, but the main Paigeforge, that we have .agents and .claude. So Claude is going to use its own folder. It doesn't want to use the .agents folder because it's better than other agents. I think it's so ridiculous, but it is a thing that Claude will not use the .agents folder, even though like basically every other agent will. But Claude wants his own folder. So we have its own folder for him. And what you'll see is that there is a build skill so that you can just tell Claude, hey, can you build that now? And it will build the VSIX so that you can update the extension in VS Code or in Antigravity. And then the other one is change the studio. And this just gives the AI like a general rundown of what the project is, where to find certain things, and the fact that the person asking is probably not a programmer. So treat I want the notes pane on the left as a complete and reasonable request, not something to be interrogated. So like it's basically just saying like, hey, this is who this person is and this is what's up. And there's also a README for the regular agents. There's a regular agents thing that basically does the same thing, but in more generic terms. So it's not specifically talking about Claude models. And it also, these files also help the models to run tests on your behalf. So that if there is something that fails, like you don't have to really do very much debug at this point. Like your main quote unquote debug will be just like, did it work or did it not work? And just letting it know. But it's going to run all the back end things to make sure that there's no like, you know, code out of place or something isn't escaped properly. You don't need to know what that means, but it runs all of your tests for you. So I created both of these skills so that you could just like go in here, hop in and make changes. So we just went over, this is VS Code, and that was Claude Code. So now I wanted to show you that you can also make changes, and I have these different colors to show that they are a different application. This is Antigravity IDE, which we also did an install on, and it works exactly the same. It is actually a VS Code fork, which means that Antigravity was built on the base of VS Code. So Paigeforge works in it, and you can also make your changes to Paigeforge in Antigravity. So we're going to do that with some of our other changes. And I'm going to pull up my notes so that I remember what those changes are because I have the memory of a squirrel. Okay, so we already added the fonts. So next what we're going to do is I want to add a find in the pretty view. So we're going to see if Gemini can handle this. Actually, you know what? We might have find be something Claude does. Because even if, as I said that, I'm like, Gemini is, I would say Gemini is probably between Haiku and Sonnet. It leans toward Sonnet capabilities. It definitely does not lean toward Opus capabilities. You need to give it one task at a time. So with Opus, I can literally say, make these 5 different changes to this application, go. And Opus will be like, got you, girl. I'm going to go do that now. Thank you. Gemini is going to potentially end up in a loop and just like get stuck and lose its mind. That is what I have witnessed. And I would say that like also goes like if you're using Klein with like DeepSeek models or you're using Klein with Kimi or some of those, I would be, you can try it, but I would be hesitant to give it multiple changes at one go. So that's just like a little heads up. Now, to be fair, I have not played with 3.6 very much. I have mostly played with 3.5 and 3.1. 3.1 was very token heavy. 3.5 was capable, but you had to give it one thing at a time. So that is the diatribe over. So we're just going to come in here. So I want the option to be able to remove a highlight that's already been applied. So that's what we're going to do is we're going to have option to remove highlight that's already been applied. And then we're going to want a settings page where you can choose the names, tags of the highlights and colors, and have the colors show next to the name in a little circle on the menu. Now, I really am tempted to just see how Gemini does with all of this at once. You know what? Screw it. Let's give it a try. So I am going to, really quickly, I'm going to pause and I'm going to back up this folder before we go any further. Can you tell that I don't trust Gemini the same way I trust Claude? I will be back in 2 seconds. Okay, so now we're back. I went ahead and backed everything up. Again, I'm just like a little bit more cautious when I use Gemini, but we are going to see if it can do all of these highlight changes for us in one go. And use the, you know, it should do this on its own. But I am just going to get acquainted. Just to add it in. Okay, so we're going to have that and we're going to hit go and wish for the best. My daily drivers are Codex by far, GPT 5.6. I use Terra for a lot of things. I don't immediately go to Soul. I've seen this happen in both the writers as well as devs is they just like pick the latest, largest, most expensive model for absolutely everything. Which is just, it's not necessary. It's not necessary. That's not something you have to do. And a lot of times it's overkill and it might even make the result worse. So I use the really big agents for like large feature changes or, you know, things like that. Or if, you know, for some reason Sonnet isn't available or, you know, Terra isn't available. But I use a 5.6 Terra for a lot of stuff. And then I use Sonnet for some stuff. I will say that a large amount of coding tasks, if it's anything above a teeny change, I switch to Opus. I wouldn't necessarily switch automatically to Fable. I saw a lot of people doing that, even if, you know, you have it on your max plan. Again, it's just overkill for a lot of stuff. So that's just me. And I usually don't use the high thinking or effort either. I'm usually set at low on pretty much absolutely everything. So, but that's just my preferences and what I've found to work the best for me. Now, sometimes, you know, using medium or high might actually get you the result faster, or it might get a better result. So it's a personal preference thing. But for me, Sonnet low, Opus low, or, you know, Terra low, that would be fine. So we will see on Gemini Flash. I wasn't kidding either. Much better with medium on Gemini. I will say that the fast, which is like temporarily available at no extra cost on Gemini, is usually pretty fast. This is running a test, so that takes a little bit longer. Anyway, we will be back when Antigravity has told us that it has done the thing. Okay, and this is why Gemini and I don't always play nice. So I was realizing that it was running a test command, but it hadn't written anything. So I'm just like popping back in here and saying you hadn't made any changes. Executor has not processed the previous input yet. Okay, and Gemini is not working. So instead, I think it's funny because like this literally shows why I don't use Gemini very much. So we're just gonna switch back over to, we'll use Codex just to show a difference in model agents, which is what I was trying to do in the first place. So I'm gonna pop over here. I'm definitely going to be able to give it everything on this one. All right, so we're on Terra. Approve for me. Use the agents. MD to get acquainted. I just spelled, all right, and we're gonna shoot it off. And let's see how long this takes Codex. I will be back when Codex has done the thing. Okay, so Tara cooked for 5 minutes, almost 6 minutes, almost exactly 6 minutes, because 5 minutes, 59 seconds, so 6 minutes. And it says themes is now in settings with editable highlight names, markdown tags, and color pickers. Highlight menus, menu items now share a colored circle beside each name. Applied highlights use their selected color. Each highlight in the notes pane has a remove highlight, which keeps the prose and removes only the annotation. Settings persist across sessions. Old highlight tags remain readable. And it passed all of its tests. So I'm going to bring back over here the folder that has just the extension open so that we can actually check and see the dev setup. If you wanted to stay in Antigravity, you would just do the same thing that we did earlier in VS Code, is you would just say new window, and in that new window, you would just open this extension folder instead. But here we have the extension open, and I'm just going to hit F5, which will go ahead and start building our little dev version. And it opens a new window for us. And then I'm just going to double click on Paigeforge so that it can load. And if you're wondering, you can use your extensions in the dev situation, and it does save to the same folders, just a heads up. So, okay. And so what they've done is they changed themes to now say settings, which has me a little nervous. Okay, so what he did is he added this huge section to the top of the theme manager. So I don't like that. I would rather have this be in a tab and have this still be called theme. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move this guy out of the way. And I'm going to move this guy because we already have this that we're talking to Codex over here in Antigravity. And so what I'm going to say, well, first, I guess actually, let's see if this works. And if it does, then we'll just have him move it to a better place. That's what we'll do. Okay, so the first one, rewrite, that makes sense. Fact check, continuity, pacing, awkward. Okay, so I don't really see myself using some of these, so I'm going to remove a few of these. And then add detail does actually make sense. Voice could make sense, but just for testing, instead of cut, I'm going to say reformat, actually just like text message. And then I would just take it into text message reformat for the tag, because this is actually what the AI sees. This is just what you see. This is what the AI sees. And then I'm going to make this purple. Yes. Okay. And add detail just for this test. I guess awkward. Written note. And I'm just going to copy this part. And I'm going to say written note. And then just paste reformat. So the tag, I would keep this all lowercase and I wouldn't use any spaces. Instead of spaces, I would use dashes. Okay. So then I'm imagining we just save theme in order to save this. Again, don't love how this was set up. I should have been more specific. But that is, this is how you learn in vibe coding. It should have been more specific. Okay. So this is rewrite. So I'm just going to grab, this is my little test file anyway. Highlight. Okay, so it did remove the ones we wanted removed. And we do have written note and text message. So I'm going to put text message. It is that color. And then I'm going to pop this out to Markdown so that I can see tag, text message, reformat. Great. So that part does work the way we want it to, which is good. So I'm going to move this out of the way. Now that we know that that works, it's just not where we wanted it. So I'm going to say, hey, I liked the theme manager being called theme, not setting. And instead of the revision highlights being on top, which is harder to use, could you put that in a tab instead on the theme manager to manage. I think that that's where I would put it. Or do we want a settings cog on the right tab? And for that, I would ask, is there something else that we might actually want a settings cog for? And at the moment, I can't think of anything. Oh, and also really quickly, it did also add the remove highlight, which we asked for, and it does work. Really quickly. That. Just FYI, it is over here, which is another one that I probably would have had like just in this little menu, but this is fine. So I could like put a settings cog in this little area, or we could make this a tab. This is a lot of stuff to change, and we'd probably only change it once. So I think it makes more sense here, and have its own save button, please. So we're going to go ahead and give it that, and we'll see how long that takes for the little revision. And this, again, is one of the reasons why you want to first go ahead and, oh no, I'm going to close this out of the way, is why you want to test it in the dev setup where it just pops up instead of automatically going and creating a new version and VSIX, because otherwise you'd be creating like a gajillion of those with every change you make. So that doesn't really make sense. So this way you can go in, you can test if the thing works, if it's where you want it to be, and if it's not, then you can make that change before bundling and updating the plugin as a whole. So that's why we want to use the little F5 to do the setup. All right, I'll be back when Tara is done cranking. Okay, so that thought for a little around 2 minutes. It said restored theme manager name, added tabs, appearance and revision highlights, moved highlight controls into revision highlights tab, added a separate save highlights button, changes are not persisted until it's clicked, regenerated the dev preview, and ran the test. Okay, so great. So over here, again, I'm just going to go ahead and hit F5 so that we can get, oh, you know what, actually, hold on. Yeah, abort. What I wanted to see, actually, one, this is a little tip too that I found. If you want to, right here, the quick input position, I moved that to center so that instead of it coming like right below here, it actually goes into the center. So it's a little bit easier to see. I don't know, that was just me. If you came here, debug, okay. So if you come here and go show and running commands, debug, start debugging right here. You can also collect it from there. If you don't have function keys on your keyboard, it will do the same thing. So I just wanted to go over that really quickly if you didn't have a keyboard that has F5. Okay, and we've got this up. I can close that. Up. And again, just double clicked on the Paigeforge icon. So now this says themes again, which I preferred. And this looks right again. Good. Revision highlights. Here we go. And it saved the ones that we had. So I'm going to do another change. So I'm going to say, what am I going to say? My brain just like completely froze on anything that would be even remotely helpful. Make funny. Because I can't think of anything. So make funny. Actually, I'd probably actually change that to rewrite for the AI information. Because again, this goes to the AI. This is for us. And I'm going to put it a really different color so that I can make sure. Save. And we're also going to add one because we didn't test the new. And we're just going to keep going. And we're just going to keep that as new. It does look like spaces is okay. So I may have lied on that. Actually, let's test that. New space. I'm just going to put that. Save highlights. And then I'm going to go to book and I'm going to open and I'm just going to grab this and I'm going to hit highlight. We do have new. Here we go. And I'm going to look at open in Markdown. I want to see how the tag hits. Okay, so tag, new space. So you can use spaces. Based on like the lowercase, I wasn't sure if it was like saying it would break if there was like a space, because that does happen in certain situations. So we do have that. And then I'm just going to double check too. Make funny is bright blue. Perfect. And here we have the tag rewrite funny. Perfect. So that is how you would add a system feature. And it shows, again, that the AI isn't always going to do exactly what you want it to do the first time. And so you may have to ask for some changes. But I mean, literally, if we look at, bring back Antigravity, that was 2 minutes and this was 6 minutes. So in under 10 minutes, I now can rename my highlights. I have highlight colors that I can choose myself. And I have something where I can remove highlights as well, which wasn't there before. So I can now remove highlights over here, and it has the little bubble next to it. So I can remove that highlight really easily. And that took, under 10 minutes for me to be able to do. So I just wanted to go over this. Again, like you're just going to be talking to these models, pretty much just asking for what you want. It's really that simple at this point. And with the skills in the main Paigeforge folder, which I'm going to come back over here, with these skills and the files that I have already set up for you guys, really like the models know what's up. They know what's going on. They know that you're probably not a developer and to just go for it. So that is really that easy. Now, really quickly at the end here, what I'm going to talk about next is if there was a big change, and I'm trying to think of something that would be a big change. So maybe, okay, I have an example. So maybe right now we have series and we have books. So you can have series, you can have books. We don't have a universe level because I wasn't sure how many of you guys are actually working in universes where there are multiple series in the same universe that might need shared files. So if you wanted to add universes, which would be a new top level organization of your books, that would be a major feature change. Right? Like that would be a huge, massive change in how Paigeforge works. So if you were going to be doing something like that, and this is one of those things too, for Codex, there is a plan mode, turn plan mode on. So in Codex, you would turn plan mode on, and there's the little plan mode. It's a little light bulb. And you would say, I would like to add universes. And then you would explain what universes are. I would like to add universes and universe pages where multiple series belong to a universe and then books belong to the series. And some characters, some canon, some timeline needs to be shared at the universe level with those series and with those books. And that's what I want to add. Could you help walk me through, how we can add that to Paigeforge and, design, and ask me any questions you have about how I would like that to look, feel, etc. And that would be the plan mode. In Claude, just pull this up so that you can see the differences. The plan mode is here, right here. And a lot of times, if you say, hey, I'd like to plan this feature change, it should switch to plan. It doesn't always. So I would always recommend doing that yourself and say, hey, I want to do this plan for this feature change. Let's talk. For that purpose, I would definitely use Opus. And for Codex, honestly, I would also use Soul. I would use Soul Light or even Medium for doing the planning. So that is where the plan is for Claude and Codex. For Gemini, it is a little bit trickier. And I'm trying to see things too. I don't think that there is a default plan that you can actually set itself. But what I will say, if Gemini is working for you today, which it's not for us today, but if Gemini is working, that generally Gemini loves to plan even a small feature change. So there's a very high chance that Gemini would be like, I'm going to plan that for you, even if you're making the smallest change you could possibly think of. So there isn't a default from what I can see. But is it up here? No. But generally it does default to planning a lot. Abacus is brand new. I haven't even used this to try for doing coding. So this has bypass, auto, and default. I'm not seeing a plan mode. I would just ask it to plan first, and hopefully it would listen to you. And let's see, I think Klein did have a plan mode, but I also think Klein by default was very prone to making plans. And then that is the model. Oh, there it is. It's a little bit hard because that is where my recording overlay is, but there is act and then there is plan. So you can do switch to plan and then say, I want to plan this feature. So that's just a real quick thing, is if it is something big where it's going to be changing how Paigeforge works as a general rule, or in a big way, like a huge like new page or things like that, I would go in and have it plan before you go in to have it do anything else, because you're going to end up with a lot better of a outcome in that case. But if it's something really small, like what we just did with the highlights, or, add, a find to this, or, again, I can't think of a bunch. Like clear formatting was something that somebody asked for in Paging Poly. That's really quick. You can just ask Codex or Claude to just make that change. And you should be able to do that with Gemini. That is another thing. Gemini is just, it's always a like 50-50 shot if it will like show up for you on the day. It's not very reliable. And it is one too with Claude or Codex. I can just like set that change and I can just walk away, right? And just let it cook, right? And Codex is a lot faster. Doing those same changes with Claude probably would have taken almost twice as long. Claude is a lot slower to make changes, especially with Opus. But I can just walk away. I don't have to watch what it's doing. With Gemini, it loves to get stuck on loops where all it will do, and you'll just watch it, it will open and read files back to back to back to back if you do not stop it and say, hey, what are you doing? And sometimes I do have to guide it to where to go. So would I recommend Antigravity or Gemini for somebody that is very much not a programmer and is not familiar with the quirks of Gemini? No, I would not. But if it is something that you want to use for little stuff for writing, which is probably a little bit safer and a little bit less glitchy, then, Antigravity might be good for you, or you might already have it installed. And again, like you can always use Claude Code or Codex inside Antigravity. You don't have to use the VS Code. And everything that we did in Antigravity, you can very easily do in the exact same agent tab in VS Code and vice versa. All right, I will see you in the next one.